the central bottleneck in AI has shifted from building the base capabilities, kind of those foundation models, training the base capability of the model, to now ensuring deployment readiness. Hey, we're back, all shiny and new. Hi, Esther.
Hi, Florian.
We are reinvented. We're new. We're all shiny, new and improved. If you don't know what we're talking about, head to the website, Slator.com. So that was a busy few weeks, wasn't it?
Yeah, few weeks, few months.
Few months. But the sprint, the final sprint and the bug hunting on the website kept us busy. So, but yeah, now we're back, can do a podcast. We'll walk you through the new website and all the good stuff that we've launched in the meantime since we spoke. I don't know, you and I, maybe like 8 weeks ago was the last
it's been a while.
News podcast. We'll walk you through at the end of this podcast because there's a bunch of other things to go through. And yeah, it's not that we haven't been busy on the podcasting front. I mean, it was we had a number of great guest episodes there with Audio Shake, where I learned a ton. With RWS, where Ben Fass walked us through the Cohere partnership, and then last week with Welo Global, the new Welo Global,
also reborn.
Also reborn. Also have now kind of a holding page for the company. Highly recommend you go back and listen to those. Very, very interesting insights there. With Paul Carr from Welo Global, I think one segment that I learned a lot was on the data for AI, where we also published a report which we're going to go through. So it was very interesting to hear his take on the business and how suitable it is for LSI. So yeah, again, highly recommend you go back. So again, give you a slightly longer walkthrough, including those on YouTube. Quick visual screen share walkthrough at the end of the podcast on the new website. Really proud, went really well. Now, SlatorCon coming up in, about 4.5 weeks, I think. We're heading to London.
Is it just 4.5 weeks? Yes, I
think
guess
it's
so. 5 weeks?
5 weeks? Tell me it's 5 weeks and not 4.5.
It must be.
Okay, 5 weeks.
Yeah. 5 weeks.
Thank you.
We'll call it 5 weeks.
But lineups almost complete. I think there's like a single slot that we're still working on, but the rest is definitely confirmed. Got a great presentation. RWS is coming and explaining the Language Weaver Cohere integration. We got the Startup Accelerator, Dubform, and Tuner. Startup Accelerator, it's going to be in a second, on a separate stage. So kind of a new format we have here. Then we have an incredible panel on voice AI with Gradium, Poly AI, and Audio Stack. Super, super interesting. Spoke to the Audio Stack CTO, Peter Coyle, when we had our Language AI meetup in London a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, very, very interesting. So I think a lot of us are going to learn a ton. Netflix is going to speak, Alison Anders. Research Accelerator, again, happening in the separate stage. Buy versus build, illusion in AI localization with Phrase and TripAdvisor. And I think I'm going to moderate this panel. Am I?
Very nice.
And then data for AI. So confirmed speakers are Sergio Brucoleri from Appen and Artem Grigorev, CTO of Toluca, a big data for AI firm. And I think we're confirming somebody else there as well, still last second. Working on this, a Startup Accelerator in the afternoon, and then we have Acola giving a presentation as well on how AI is rewriting global content supply chain. We got the investor panel with Araya Ventures, Saluna Capital, and Twin Path Ventures, which you're going to moderate.
Yes.
And then you're going to close. And then we're going to hear from John Tinsley, Translated VP of AI Solutions at the Networking. So we're all set. Tickets are for sale, looking good. Make sure to join us in London.
One question. So
yes.
You mentioned there's a separate stage. Does that mean people have to choose between the main stage and the separate stage?
They do not. They do not. So it's during the break. So we keep that one stage formula that we have, right? So we have the main stage with that incredible backdrop, that giant screen, the biggest screen ever. And then there's a separate room with that seats about 40 to 50 people where this is happening while people are networking.
Got it.
So you can choose to go there during the networking break. Because there's some people that, may not be the extroverts that may want to go and, get more content. So that's what we're doing there. Cool. So we didn't just launch since we spoke last time, Esther, on this in February, we didn't just launch a new website and a data for AI report, but we also just launched the Slator Index.
Very true. Yes, very exciting.
Very true. So it's no longer called the Slator Language Service Provider Index, but the Slator Index.
It's tough to get away from, I have to say. I'm very tempted always to refer to it by the former name after sort of 7 years, 7 iterations or 7 editions of that particular one. But I like the new name. It's short, and obviously it encompasses way more than just sort of language service provider.
Absolutely. And we can't really rename or, I don't know.
Rebrand.
Rebrand the kind of the LSI, LTP, and then still keep that index as the language service provider index, right? So we discussed this a long time and just felt, why don't we just call it Slator Index? Because a lot of people were referring to it as Slator Index before already anyway. So, when's your index coming? I was like, okay, yeah, it's, language service provider. Okay, so it's the Slator Index, and it now also features a selection of LTPs, language technology platforms, with some key data points. So it's the reason it's still a relatively modest list of LTPs is because we're actually making them go through a survey. We're not just featuring them in a list with some random data points, but it's actually that there's some revenue data for some. There's some usage data, some MRR data, some monthly active user data. Whatever we could get, and so it's a very interesting list. It's basically you got the LSIs on the one tab, and you got the LTPs on the other tab. So why don't we dig into some of the results high level? I think the amount of revenue we indexed went up again, marginally, right? But that should not be interpreted as evidence of like an underlying market expansion, because I think we indexed probably more companies, and also there's a fair amount of M&A activity, and I think we wrote that as participation in index is voluntary, results are skewed towards high-performing firms. Selection bias. So if you're doing poorly, you may stop participating. So there's growth in the revenue index, but I don't think that really reflects underlying market growth of like the core language industry. Also, there's a bunch of M&A, which continues to inflate aggregate revenues. Because I think if you look at, let me just pull this up, it says 57% of companies report declining revenues. Yeah, if you look at the overall number, it's not looking super pretty there on the LSI front. Why don't we jump to the actual index and maybe just go through some selectively there. At the top, we have, TransPerfect, reporting 8.3% growth. We must have spoken about this on a prior podcast, right?
Yeah, we did, because I think we did coverage of when they announced their financial results and the whole fact that they're no longer or less than 50% language services.
Correct. So they eked out 8% growth there with some of the other services they're doing. RWS is down 3.9% in dollars. That's verified. That's publicly filed. Appropriate jumped. They are up 71%, but that's on the back of a ton of M&A, including SlatorCon. So that's probably the biggest one. Then Welo Global is down 2.6%. Then Oculot's down 9.8%. That's self-reported. And then on the super agency front, who else do we have here? We have Star Group down 5.1%. So overall, on the super agency front, it's basically a couple outliers with Propra and TransPerfect, but mostly on the back of M&A.
Yeah, I mean, those two companies are probably in 2025 in particular, have been among or the most acquisitive in the industry, right?
100%. And then did Dals acquire somebody, another company? Dals, the UK-based interpreting company? They're PE-backed?
I think they did. I wouldn't know at what point exactly, whether it was 25 or earlier.
they're up 20%. Quite impressive. Then Elan Languages, I'm sure they acquired somebody, that they're down 2.8%. Argos Multilingual didn't acquire anybody. Pretty sure they didn't. And they're up 11%. Congrats to Veronique. So that's good. LanguageWire down 16%. They didn't acquire anybody, I believe, in 2025. That must have been before the French kind of tech doc acquisitions they made. And then
they were quite small though, I believe, anyway, the French tech doc thing, right? That would have been in 25, I think, at least one or two of them maybe. It's
Oxford
hard when
Languages.
time moves so fast. You're like, was that 25 or 24? Been doing this too long.
I've been doing this too long. Oxford Languages. Our friends there at Oxford Languages, Casper Grothwell, we had him at a remote, I think, once. They're up 27%.
He was on the pod as well a long time ago.
You're right. He was on the pod also.
Yeah.
Up 27%. So business is going well for them, on the back of data for AI. We'll speak about that soon, because high quality data is very much in demand. And, if you're Oxford Languages, the one thing you have is high quality data. So going further down, I think we have AI Media Verified there because they're public. They're down 2%.
Marginal.
Linguava Interpreters up 19%.
Yeah, the two sort of US-based interpreting, right, still seems, at least in pockets, to be doing quite well.
You're right. Hannah Interpreting also up 24%. Yeah. Congrats. What else do we have? If you go down, T-Works, the collection of companies in the DACH region, down 12%. On the flip side, Terra up 17%. And the translation people up 37%. Interpreters Unlimited down 12%. And then closing up with AvantPage, who were on the podcast as well, up 8%. Yeah, so head over to the list. It's freely accessible. If you want to get the entire list as an Excel or a Google Sheet or whatever, you can. I think we made it so you can actually buy that one. Otherwise, generally freely accessible. Great. Congrats to the team putting this out mid-April. I know it's a ton of work to get, 300-400 companies to reply to that survey and getting it out so early. So congrats to the team. Great. Hey, I want to just briefly go and revisit the RWS-Cohere partnership. Of course, if you want to hear from the CEO himself, go and check out the podcast with Ben Fass. But I just want to share some of my thoughts, the TLDR there. I still think this is actually a big win for RWS, and it's interesting how the market just did not react to it at all. I think maybe they're, again, no investment advice, but I think they're underestimating this a bit. It is a win-win. Cohere really gets to showcase a major kind of enterprise adoption, because Language Weaver, right? It's a core. It's a core. RWS is a language solutions integrator, and Language Weaver is a core engine of it with AI translation. And now they're saying, well, we have the car around it. We keep with Language Weaver, but let's switch out the engine, and we're putting in the Cohere engine, right?
Okay.
So that's a pretty big decision. But if you're the engine manufacturer, that's also a pretty big win, because you're getting a lot of distribution through RWS, right? So generally, I feel this is such an interesting partnership, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the impact will be for RWS, but also for Cohere. And also wonder what this means for DeepL, right? This is quite a competitive move by these two companies. DeepL's obviously the engine, and now they're building the car around it. So to belabor the metaphor further. Anyway, I think it's a super interesting partnership. And also, Cohere really is doubling down on that multilingual, and even people that used to be ex-Cohere are doubling down on multilingual. This morning, I learned that a company called Adaption was founded by Sarah Hooker, who was the lead of the part of the multilingual team at Cohere, and they started a new company. I don't think we covered that. I think it was a $50 million funding. We're trying to dig into this a bit more, but basically,
Nice.
yeah, there's all this kind of activity around Cohere also happening.
And they'll be talking, or at least RWS will be speaking about the partnership in some detail at SlatorCon.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we're still waiting for the person that's going to come in from Cohere, but I'm sure they're bringing somebody on together with the head of language readers. Very, very exciting there. We want to briefly head to data for AI. So we did publish that amazing report, touched on it in the past couple of podcasts with Ben and Paul, but you really have to get that. I mean, if you're an LSI and you're looking for growth, if you're already in that space, this is an absolutely, it's kind of a seminal report also for us, right? I mean, we're now starting to cover this segment much more aggressively. In addition to voice, data for AI, I think it's roughly a $10 billion market. What was the exact figure there?
9.3, I think, was the label we put on it.
Yeah, $9.3 billion currently, and it's expected to grow very strongly, so to like over $20 billion by 2030. That's obviously an educated guess, but you're talking about a major growth market here that is somewhat open to LSIs. We do, of course, caution that there's a bunch of things that LSIs need to have in place to be successful there. Also, Paul from Wheelo Global added his take in last week's podcast about what's needed. So it's not a straight line from an LSI to a data provider, but their LSIs have, I think Paul said, about 50% of their what they need to be successful in that.
It's not a bad starting point. I mean, frankly,
exactly
compared to like another outsider. Yeah.
And you've seen a number of LSIs kind of pivot completely, and others haven't. But like it's definitely something that you need to look at.
Yeah, I mean, I've had that as a let's say talking to people in the market where I'm saying, okay, what are you open for? What are you looking for in terms of maybe acquisitions? And it's come back like data for AI, data support services. That really this is an area that people are some people are prioritizing from a strategic perspective.
So when you talk to them on the advisory side, they're saying they're now looking at acquisitions in that space?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, on the one hand, looking potentially for acquisitions on that space, but also themselves sort of trying to double down within that space. So, double-sided.
And it really shifted. In the report, we're laying out 3 phases, kind of pre-2020 and 2020 to 2022, and then from 2022, with the ChatGPT moment. So I think really the central bottleneck in AI has shifted from building the base capabilities, kind of those foundation models, training the base capability of the model, to now ensuring deployment readiness. That is not jargon. That just means, these models, if you want to deploy them at your company, they need very specific data to really work, right? They work up to a point, the base model is, but then you need to add specific additional data. And that's where the data for AI industry is coming in, right? So you need increasingly so the industry is increasingly focused on data that makes these AI systems reliable and safe and like useful in real world operational environments. So capability data was the past, or this still is needed, of course, but deployment data is now where demand is really accelerated. And there's different sets there: adaptation, alignment, adversarial, and evaluation data sets. This is all essential for tailoring general foundational models for specific tasks, behaviors, and industries. And this also meant that the kind of workforce shifted a lot, right? In the 2018-19 kind of Appen glory days, like it was low-cost general annotators, and now you need much more specialized expert knowledge labor. That's very different, right?
Where's that coming from? I mean, is it people that have come from other professions that are sort of training up somehow within the data for AI market, or is it sort of graduate of programs that might be somewhat suited to this?
Great question. I think let's dig into the report even more. So we're going to schedule a podcast with our head of research who wrote that report to answer some of these questions. You should join and ask her questions.
I will.
Yeah. So we also found that Frontier AI Labs are shifting their sourcing from kind of the saturated public web data towards licensed and proprietary data. In the past, you just scour the internet, and I guess that one's done. Every Reddit thread has been ingested into some model already. Look, we could go on here, but I just do recommend that people go and get that report. We're scheduling another podcast specifically on that report. We're trying to get people on the podcast from the space. We're hosting the panel at SlatorCon remote with people who are, running big companies that are active in this industry. So we're doing our part to make sure that people learn about this, and the people that are already in this space get additional, market intel on it.
Yeah.
Why don't we head over to M&A? I think there's been a couple of fundings and like one somewhat complex buyout there in Italy.
Yeah, there've been a few things happening since we spoke, and I think this is not all of it, but some of the sort of transactions that we've chosen to highlight. So start with the complicated or most complicated one first, I suppose. It would be the buyout of Star 7 by a private equity fund, Argos, with the idea being that the fund is going to acquire sort of 75% of the company, which is currently public, somewhat public. Some of its shares are public. So there's a whole sort of level of complexity there, and I think specific to sort of the Italian market.
So the 75% are owned by private like by Dante, and then the Swiss-based company, the LSI.
Yeah.
And then they have this kind of tiny free float, or like the quarter of the shares, 25% is a free float on the Milan Stock Exchange. Okay. Huh. All
yeah.
right.
I mean, it's not easy. It's kind of not easy to parse in terms of, what exactly is happening from a transaction perspective for somebody coming in from the outside like myself. But yeah, I mean, I think just generally we could say we can look at some of the reports that come out. So in terms of the offer price, I think we had that at 11.90 euros per share, which seems to be a bit of a premium over the 6-month average price. But then again, only of those 25% of shares. So not quite sure what to make of that in particular. Overall, so I think the 2025 revenue was down, and they have faced some performance pressure. So revenue down about 3%, nothing crazy, but still some pressure. While net profit also down 14%. So yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what the fund does with it once this all assume kind of goes through the necessary clearances. And yeah, I think initially they'll be the 75% owner, but with the objective of at some point probably taking over the 25% shares also.
But it's been a while since we've seen a fund, kind of a PE fund or another buyout fund, buy something related to the language industry. So yeah, maybe they're coming back now.
It's interesting. I mean, they are firmly within localization, but I mean, they say they've seen a decline within the localization, which was primarily its core business, and somewhat of a shift towards what they call experience and product knowledge services. And I think they are emphasizing, somewhat naturally, the strategy around the integration of AI and developing this knowledge as a service approach. So let's see what the fund decides to execute on.
That's what we're doing. We're doing a podcast, which is knowledge as a service. It's free. You can listen
knowledge
to it
is a free service.
No, knowledge is a free service. We should. All right. There is another interesting one that is also from a world I'm not familiar with. Manga localization, distribution. Manga, yeah.
You said you liked this one. Yeah.
I like this one.
Why do you like this one so much? Yeah. But this,
I don't know, it brings back memories, like the
Akira
Akira days back in like the 90s, and now my kids are reading all these manga comics.
I have
right?
absolutely. I mean, on a personal level, just absolutely no knowledge of manga or comics or anything.
They're so popular. I mean, they're
I know.
popular among the kids.
I think that's what I'm saying. Not the right generation, maybe. Yeah, so there was a New York-based company called GlobalComix that raised $13 million in funding, first of all, and then went on to acquire it's a company called INKR, based out of Singapore, which is the manga localization and distribution platform. So therein lies the manga component. I think the aim here is for GlobalComix to go deeper into the content localization side, also with the aim of helping publishers to release the manga or the translated manga editions kind of closer to the original publication date. And I mean, something that I think is pretty interesting within this space is what they were talking about as sort of the piracy element. So the fact that a lot of manga is not actually sort of officially translated, but you have these homegrown fans that are probably trying to localize and translate as much as possible. So here the idea would be to sort of offer more broadly to publishers so that they have more options to be able to translate officially with using INKR's technology, as I understand it. So here we've got the like a human in the loop approach, and then also with the plan to use the funding to grow the platform, and then also within sort of supporting the development of the technology, as well as global expansion and monetization. So everything.
I think manga is just super, it's super hard to localize, right? I mean, a lot of it is clearly Japanese. It's very difficult to get right.
We spoke about that a little bit. Yeah, I was going to say that when we had, I'm blanking on her name, but there was somebody who was a Japanese to English translator for most like game localization, particularly, but was I think maybe also manga would be somewhat included within that. Long time ago, but I think this is probably a very similar area and some similarities in the challenges faced by the market.
All right, good luck too. GlobalComix with their integration of INKR and bringing all those wonderful mangas to the Western world. So one additional adjacent funding there is a company called VoiceLine. Do you want to take this just briefly? We don't have to talk too much. I mean, it's basically we're starting to cover voice and voice AI much more, and we're picking up these companies. There's a lot of activity in that space. So this company is called VoiceLine. So how much did they raise?
So we've got, sorry, just as an aside, we've got a language line, a trans line, and a voice line. There's a lot. We need like a speech line.
Let me see. Wow, VoiceLine AI. Okay, they got the domain voiceline.ai.
That was just sparked in my mind that, this line thing is very popular in company names still.
It is.
So anyway, we have VoiceLine based in Germany, raising 10 million euros. The funding was led by Alston Capital and Peak, and there was also existing investors that participated in this funding round. What is VoiceLine? Well, it's a voice-first AI platform. So as you mentioned, sort of, covering more around voice AI because it's a natural sort of extension and application of a lot of the language AI that is so central to what we cover. And I mean, I think something that has become sort of clear to me or to us as we begin to look into this a lot more or expand the coverage thereof is that one of the areas that seems to be sort of very big and very popular for the voice AI companies at the moment is that kind of frontline services. Not frontline in the sense of like public services, but frontline in the sense from an enterprise perspective. So the kind of sales and the sort of support functions that really rely on a lot of phone calls, like telephony and video calls potentially, but traditionally were have been very sort of cold calling or like customer interaction heavy. And so that's a big niche for not just VoiceLine, but sort of the voice AI companies more broadly.
Yeah, you know what their mission is? I'm on their LinkedIn page. Their mission Their mission is to liberate professionals from cumbersome admin tasks, enabling true freedom and optimal performance every day.
It sounds wonderful.
We should register. We should sign up.
I like what they said, which is so that it's a voice first AI company. They're not just doing transcripts and summarization, but the idea is that they will turn those, call it like customer interactions, into actions or actionable tasks. Like we would have a task in Asana, for example, or like an entry into a CRM database, some kind of report. So I think there is an extension of the capability into beyond sort of a summarization, which is maybe like a kind of knowledge or information output, into more of an actionable output, such as a task. So I do like kind of using that for then a follow-up, which you would have to do anyway if you were, wanting to follow up on a customer call.
All right, VoiceLine. If you want to explain your business on the podcast, reach out, editor@slator.com. Cool. Let's end with a quick walkthrough for those of you who are on YouTube and watch us on YouTube. I want to tell you a bit more about our new website, new and improved. Definitely very much improved. So let me just spin this up. All right. So here we are. So clean, new design, new logo, very, very nice market intelligence on language solutions and AI. You can subscribe here for our research. You can book a call. If you see here the top nav, it's now split by research, advisory. It's your part of the business, Esther.
Yep.
Consulting, events, insights, and publish. So I will go through that in a second. But if you just go through the landing page, so much nicer. We have these segments here. Understand the market takes you to our research. Optimize your product or strategy takes you to our consulting page. Sell your company takes you to the advisory page. If you want to buy a company, you can also go there.
Tell or a direct line to call me.
That's right. That's right. Tell your story takes you to our publishing and content services page, and meet industry leaders, unsurprisingly, takes you to the SlatorCon page, and in the future also the kind of the events hub. Here's some credibility. We're going to the use case explorer here. Again, advisory. There's some success stories here that are featured. EDM sold to PowerLane, TransFX sold to XDM, consulting. Here's, for example, the DeepL go-to-market case study that we did, and a couple other showcases here where you can talk to our head of consulting, Alex Edwards. Research features the latest piece in our analyst desk and the latest report here. Events, obviously SlatorCon, and insights is some of the latest coverage we have. You go further down, here's the content section. Partner spotlight, reports, analyst desk, partner content, press release, etc. Here's the subscription, very easily accessible to get all that good stuff, all that good research and analysis. And then here we have the events side. So I guess one of the key changes here is also that we separated the paywall content and the free insights. So here on the research side, you have the reports and the analyst desk, which is, reports are the bigger reports, and the analyst desk is essentially the paywall content. Then on the insights, we have the newsroom, which is where our freely accessible daily coverage happens, partner content, where our partners publish, press releases, then of course this podcast and the directory. So yeah, generally super proud that we got this online in a fairly lean fashion, and it looks incredible. It looks so much better. With that, I think we can wrap for today. All right. Nice. Thank you so much, Esther.